This podcast was brought to you by two YouTubers who can apparently go 5 minutes without disrespecting a country or indeed showing dead bodies live on YouTube.
Yeah, the bar is on the floor, folks.
Hello and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader. In the words of a recently returned wrestler, we're back.
Indeed, we're back after a new year, and forgive us if we're sounding a bit rusty, but a lot happened over the break, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Like, for instance, I was debating whether or not to review one of two things, but then I realized there's a giant galaxy far, far away shaped elephant in the room.
Indeed, yes, so we definitely have to talk about that. And in terms of this being January and the start of the new year, all I can say is that I hope this year will be a lot more positive than some of the stuff that happened in the last one. Or, at the very least, I would like a lot of celebrities to turn out to not be gigantic douchebags.
Oh god, yeah. Honestly, my standards are not high. I just don't want this year to be as bleak as 2016 or as insane as 2017. Also, like you said, I would like for celebrities to stop being douchebags or stop being dead.
Yeah, and personally, I would wish that creators like Max Landis and Nobuhiro Watsuki would not turn out to be complete utter creeps, but anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, it's not that we have a problem with this information coming out, but it's more, well, to quote the movie Liar Liar, stop breaking the law, asshole.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, like I said, focusing more on positivity, so let's get straight to the first section of this podcast, which is Q&A! This is the section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion.
Our first question comes from IZ.
You mentioned before that things like the damsel in distress or the chosen one concept are used as creative safety nets. What would you say is a way to start bucking the trend?
At the risk of sounding incredibly dismissive, one way to get around it is, well, just thinking about it for longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah, honestly, there's no super in-depth answer to this, because you can either just not do it, you can put more general thought into your concept before launching it, or you could do the tropes well. That's always an option.
Indeed, yeah, and that requires a bit more thought, because, well, here's the thing. I've been thinking about this recently because in my Path of Radiance review, someone linked me to a video claiming that, unfortunately, Path of Radiance has all the issues listed in this video. And it was a video called Bad Writing Advice, which was basically making fun of the evil empire trope. But the thing is, I was kind of annoyed at that video, well, partially because half of the stuff that was brought up in it didn't actually apply to Path of Radiance at all, like, oh, these evil empires never care about PR and they can waste billions of resources chasing after the hero, which completely ignores the fact that A, they were very careful about their appearance, that's why they disguised themselves and tried to set it up as a legal war in the first place, and B, they didn't send all of their resources after the heroes. In fact, they only sent a platoon because that was all they could afford at the time.
Yeah, it's not like the Kingdom of Daein was just throwing all of their mooks at the main party. Most of their mooks were murdering people in Crimea.
Yeah, so that was one aspect, but also it's the fact that just saying, oh look, this thing uses a well-established cliche or trope, doesn't actually work, because you can actually use these and work well. The reason why people often make fun of the damsel in distress or the chosen one cliches is because people use them as just a substitute for actually thinking of a purpose behind it all. The reason why people make fun of Princess Peach's being kidnapped is not just because it reduces Peach to being a damsel, but because it's so obvious by now that the only reason Nintendo does it is because they can't be bothered to think of another setup. It's gotten to the point where even making fun of it, like, oh, Princess Peach is being kidnapped again, is not funny anymore because there's the realization that she's been kidnapped again and we're not gonna do a single goddamn thing about it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like you just said, these tropes can be used well, and honestly, just complaining about the existence of the trope sort of makes you sound like a VG hipster knob, which is why I'm very careful about what tropes I just straight up throw into the garbage bin.
Yeah, exactly. It's more like you just have to give the tropes a bit of thought. Like, you don't always have to completely subvert the wheel of each trope, just give it a bit more thought. Like, okay, we have a damsel in distress, how about making, I don't know, the damsel an actual character? One that we actually give a toss about, apart from just be, oh no, she's been locked up, whatever will we do?
Yeah, you don't have to completely throw away established tropes, you just have to, I don't know, make them not suck. Write them so that they don't devalue the plot and the characters and come off as a complete excuse.
It's something one of the less pretentious art teachers in my college told me. It's fine to be inspired by something, but what you're supposed to be doing is taking that inspiration and adding a new twist on it. And the reason people get tired of the stuff like the Chosen One narrative is because people aren't adding their own twist to it. They're just saying, oh, he's the Chosen One. That explains why this guy does literally everything.
Yeah, I'm looking at you, Ichigo. And Anakin.
Oh, we'll get to that second one later. But anyway.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting death battle. Moving on.
It actually would, now that I think about it, but yeah. Oh, geez. We move on to the second question, and this one comes from Roy Havenstone.
What are your thoughts on this criticism of Pokemon Omega Ruby's story?
Okay, this one's going to require some context. The criticism he's speaking of is a YouTube video by Shay May. It's entitled An Exhaustive Look at Pokemon Omega Ruby, and when he says exhaustive, he's not kidding, folks. The video's 7 hours long.
What?
Yeah, like, the idea of making a video that's 7 hours long is staggering to me, but yeah.
Dude, I can barely stay awake 7 hours.
Yeah, but specifically, he's referring to one point in particular where Shay May actually sums up what his main problem with the story is. It comes in 2 to 3 points. I say that mainly because the first two can kind of be one and the same. The first is that the dialogue is filled with needless fluff, interrupting you every 5 minutes to make sure that you have completely understood what's going on, or is just being repetitive to hammer home what the theme of this particular section is. The moment he cites is when you arrive into Tulipana City for the first time, and despite the fact that there's a major crisis going on because the embodiment of the land has summoned a drought that is causing everything to slowly dry up, everyone keeps interrupting to go, huh, it's very hot round here, isn't it? Oh my, it just keeps getting hotter. Huh, how ironic. We rely on the sun for life, but too much of it, and it could kill us all. You know, that kind of...
Well, thank you for that last insight there, Anakin.
And the second is that, well, it's actually kind of funny you compared my voice there to Anakin. It's that he claims that in order to try to make the, let's be honest, relatively simple story of the original Pokemon Ruby feel a lot more epic, they decide to add more dialogue rather than, say, develop the characters more. And spending a lot of time to set up the trainer as the hero, as supposedly Steve meets you for the first time and says, oh, you know, I see something about you. You could even become champion one day. You meet legendaries and they decide that you're so awesome that they will travel with you. And no, you don't get a choice about it. You don't even have to catch it. You can just get Latios or Latios for free.
Yeah, I remember that. That was stupid.
Yeah, and then the old codgers on Mount Pyre decide that, oh, you're the chosen one, we'll hand you over the orb. And then, despite the fact that the 8th gym leader and the freaking champion are right there next to you, you're the only one who can actually defeat Groundon for reasons.
Yeah, speaking of examples of the Chosen One trope done really badly.
Yeah, combine that with the easy difficulty and it just makes the whole thing feel preordained. And all of that... yeah, I can totally understand that in the case of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which was the game I played.
Yeah, same. I really don't have any way to refute that because I'm I'm a big fan of Hoenn. I liked Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, but the translation to the modern era of gaming that they tried to go for didn't really work.
Yeah, I mean, it just produced a result that was okay. I don't consider it the worst Pokemon game, but it was just sort of okay. It had its moments, which I really love what they did with the battle with Wally, but the rest, it was just sort of, yeah, like you said, it was just okay. And then there was Delta Emerald. So, oh god, let's not talk about Delta Emerald. That could... God, that freaking character! Anyway.
Luckily, I never made it that far before I got addicted to Sun and Moon. But yeah, as far as adaptations go, it's not Shadow Dragon bad. Nothing is Shadow Dragon bad. And it is by far not the worst Pokemon game. Cough, cough, the original Red and Blue. I'm sorry, it's true.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with you that game has loads of glitches, although I would still argue that there are parts of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon that I find even more annoying, and I know so many people are going to rage at me for that one, but anyway...
To be fair, you're not wrong, but I was just going with the main series games, since they were sort of what was in question here.
Yeah, that is entirely fair. I mean, in terms of the general Pokemon games, like, X and Y had a lot of the same problems, and that was part of the reason why I gave up the instant Fire Emblem Fates came around, because frankly, that game was so easy, and the characters, it was just continuously reminding you what their trumps were supposed to be, rather than being actual characters. Like, going from that after Black and White was just, it just lacked something, man. Thankfully, Pokemon Sun and Moon have improved a lot of things, although Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon seems to be dragging those tropes back in.
Yeah. Now, I'm not proud to admit this, but I actually spoiled myself for Ultra Sun and Moon just to see if it was worth picking them up whenever I know that they are the exact same game as Sun and Moon, pretty much. But as it turns out, they're not exactly Sun and Moon. They're Sun and Moon, except stupider.
Yeah, actually, the best way to describe them is Pokemon Sun and Moon, the Special Edition.
A very special episode of Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Sorry, I just needed to bring that Star Wars analogy one more time, because that's what they feel like. Like, we were talking about superfluous dialogue or exposition. There was one example in particular, because I was playing Ultra Sun and Moon over the Christmas break, and it's honestly the first Pokemon remake where I'm thinking I'm actually going to have to play the original, because I think I like that a lot more, because some of the new features are cool, and I'm glad that there are more Pokemon to play with, but at the same time, there is like one scene where I walked into, I forget what the name of the town is, but it's just before the Ghost Trial when you're in that ruined city. There were two members of the Recon Squad who literally walk in and then just go, huh, this is a ruined village. This kind of reminds me of our alternate dimension where we came from. See, there was a Pokemon called Nekozama that absorbed all of the light within our area, and it destroyed our dimension, and now it's come back here. We must prevent that. Goodbye. And then they just walk off.
Oh my god, I've heard better dialogue in Fire Emblem 6.
It's just the example of how can we make Pokemon Sun and Moon even more epic? I know, let's just throw in extra features and hammer home the exposition just in case you didn't get it.
Yeah, and that's especially egregious considering Sun and Moon is already epic as, well, forgive my cursing, hecky.
Yeah, Sun and Moon I actually really liked, and it's actually kind of bad when a remake makes me want to play the original just to confirm whether or not the original was as good as I remember it, or whether it really is just a case of Ultra Moon adding way too much to something.
Yeah, as the one meme goes, trying to do too much.
Indeed, yes.
Our next question comes from Vice of Legends.
Since we all know by now that people are hating way too much on Sonic Forces, which action should Sega take? Just stay with the 2D Sonic games for a while, or do what they did with Sonic Mania and get some fans in to make the next 3D Sonic game? Or do you have a third idea?
Honestly, not a Sonic fan, and at this point I never will be one because I'm sick of the fandom, I'm sick of Sega, and I'm sick of talking about Sonic.
Fair enough. In my case, as the one who is kind of more of a Sonic fan, but questioning his life choices,
I don't blame you at this point. This is getting ridiculous.
Okay, that was bothering a bit me, but yeah. I will say that Sonic Forces is not something I hate. As I mentioned in my New Year's VGT, which is currently exported at the time of recording, just to give you a time scale of this, but as I said in my New Year's VGT, I don't hate Sonic Forces because, well, that requires me to have any emotional reaction or investment in it, but
oh god, that's sad.
Yeah, like, I can't even call it so bad it's good anymore because it was just so bland.
You know it's bad whenever it's no longer so bad it's good. It's so bad it makes you feel dead inside.
Yeah, it's just... I'm not sure what to do. Like, maybe if you did get some fans of the 3D games to work on it, it might work. I mean, the unfortunate thing is, the reason the fans of the reason those fan gamers were hired for Sonic Mania was because, well, they had actually proved themselves making Sonic fan games, which there are a lot of fan-made 2D Sonic games out there, not so much 3D games, unless you include all those Sonic Generations mods.
Yeah, honestly, if I may give my very, very, very distant 2 cents as someone who has not touched a Sonic game since Sonic Heroes, if I were to make a suggestion as to what can be done to save the series, hire better writers. This isn't difficult. If a better writing team can save My Little Pony, they can save Sonic.
Indeed, yes. Although, I would add one other caveat, because yes, it would probably be good if some fans did make a 3D version of the Sonic series, but even with stuff like Sonic Mania, and even Sonic Boom, which have been pretty successful, there is one action I would like Sega to take, which is... for the love of God, can you please decide what your series is about? Please! Just have some form of consistency. Because Sega keeps continuously reinventing the wheel and is splitting its fan base to the point that no one really knows what Sonic is anymore. Honestly, it seems like every new game is a new mechanic and a reactionary change to some feedback that supposedly happened. Like, Sonic Heroes, it made it so dumb and appeal to children because apparently people were saying Adventure 2 was too dark and not like the Genesis games. Shadow the Hedgehog was a emergency reaction to, oh, Shadow's very popular, and hey, these third-person shooters are down with the kids these days, let's make a dark, gritty Sonic. Which, that didn't work. And then, with Sonic 06, people claimed the problem was that, well, the problem with this game is that there are too many characters, which... frankly, that wasn't the only problem with Sonic 06, but whatever.
Okay, may I just point out that the Sonic team's reaction to the fan base is literally the diametric opposite of the WWE creative reaction to the fan base. On one hand, you have an entity that will do what they have planned no matter what the fans think, and on the other hand, you have an entity that reacts solely to the fans, even the ones who shouldn't really be paid much attention to.
Yeah, that's the problem. Like, it just keeps happening. In fact, the reason we ended up in Sonic Forces is because it wants to keep all the comedy, because stuff like that has been successful with both Colors and Sonic Boom, the TV show, not the game. But at the same time, it's heard the fan reaction that these stories aren't serious enough. We want a serious plot like the adventure games. And then on top of that, it tries to make an appeal to classic fans by including classic Sonic.
Why? Why do they keep doing that?
And not only that, they retconned it in the story, so instead of saying that he was Sonic's younger self, like in Generations, which makes sense, they now claim that he's a version of Sonic from another dimension to make himself a completely separate character, which is all a very... And I know why they did that. They did it because, in a short-sighted way, they wanted to try and make it out that, oh yeah, Mania's happening in a spin-off universe, so we can have them all go in there a separate way, despite the fact that it's just causing yet more brand confusion. Because, okay, what is Sonic? Is he this chubby little thing or this long, slender thing that's voiced by Roger Craig Smith? You know, it's...
Oh, God. I just started cracking up because it's like if you gave Mario a TARDIS.
It basically is.
Someone needs to write that, by the way.
Yeah, so now the problem is... it's continuously trying to appeal to subset of fans, but it's completely divided about what the bloody hell they want. And every time they introduce a new mechanic, it keeps happening. So if really Sonic is going to survive at this point, it needs to just say, okay, this is what we are, and burn the rest of the bridges. Because frankly, there is a lot of other stuff going on. Like, I'm actually 100% serious that I may actually be thinking of switching from Sonic to Freedom Planet at this point. Because Freedom Planet, I actually thought about what it was that I liked about Sonic games in the first place. And I figured that, well, the initial reason I joined it is because it came around in the late 90s, early 2000s, which I'm sure anyone who grew up in that generation will know that that was when shonen anime was just taking off, but in a very limited field. Like, there was no streaming service. The only way you could get anime was from whatever was brought stateside, and you consumed the crap out of it. That's why I got into stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh!, Beyblade, and even some crap stuff no one remembers, like Shinzo Flux, Speederman, and oh god, there are so many of them now.
Shinzo Flux. Sounds like an exercise machine.
Yeah, it was a very weird time. But yeah, long short all of it is, that was the reason I got into Sonic, because it reminded me of anime back in those days. But the reason I stuck with it was because I found it incredibly charming that even though the plots were so ridiculous that if you just looked at them for 5 minutes, you would say stuff like, hang on, the space colony art was created 50 years ago. Why is it so much more advanced than literally every other technological device on the planet at this point? But
yeah, and I guess the only answer is because Robotnik.
Well, not even that. Apparently it was Robotnik's grandfather that helped build the thing. Work your head around that. But anyway.
Wait, in that case, that means it's... Oh my god, it would be Cold War technology. Okay, yeah. I'm gonna cogitate on this for a while because my brain hurts.
Exactly. But the reason I found it charming was because it was such a ridiculous plot, but it was trying so hard to sell it as something truly epic, and that's the kind of the level of sincerity, or at the very least insanity, that I enjoyed. And honestly, Freedom Planet, which started out as a Sonic fan game but was then turned into its own thing, is actually what I'm more into these days. And frankly, after Sonic Forces, which was just so dull, it was unbelievably dull. Like, there's so many things which I should be nerd raging at or should be laughing at, but it's so low-key and barely anything's registered. Like, I mean, the game literally starts with, oh no, Sonic has been defeated, and now we all assume he's dead. Oh no, wait, it turns out Sonic is alive and on board a space station. Okay. Oh, and he's been tortured for months. Oh, that's a shame. Oh, let's go rescue him. You know, it's just, it's delivered now.
Oh, so it's the Force Unleashed of Sonic.
Kind of. It's, I mean, but the problem is, even the Force Unleashed of its bland story, at least it tried to make it seem epic.
That's true, and at times it tried to make it seem a little too epic.
If it continues like this, like, after both Lost World and Forces, I think I'm running out of patience. Like, it's not even a guilty pleasure at this point. It's just drinking tap water.
And nobody wants to drink tap water.
Well, not if you want to get excited anyway.
Yeah, you only drink tap water when you're about to die of thirst. And there are much tastier, trendier waters on the shelves. That is a metaphor that I never thought I'd make.
Oh, geez. But yeah, you do need to drink water to live, and also to keep up voice acting. Speaking of which, our next question comes from MVL. Hey up, dude. His question is,
who do you think would play your part in a reboot of Monkey broadcast? I'd probably get Matthew Mercer to voice both of you, as he could do all the voices.
Same. Matthew Mercer is my single deity. That's not creepy at all.
Yes. Well, part of me is tempted to get KG Tang, but to voice me. But
wow, Monkey broadcast, this time with more Kenshiro.
Just because of the sheer amount of ham. I was thinking more of his Owain performance from both Fire Emblem Awakening and in Warriors, especially his boss intro dialogue where he leaps down and goes, "I've seen the future, and you didn't make the cut." As the camera pans away, you can just hear him go, "Yeah, nailed it."
Meanwhile, I'm just imagining, because Keiji Tang is the voice of Kinshiro, after reviewing a manga, you could just say, "You are already red." I hate myself after that.
Oh, these. You, Sven? I guess Matthew Mercer would be good for you if he was doing complete deadpan sarcasm mode.
To be fair, he certainly had the roles to show it in Critical Role. I'm just sticking with Matthew Mercer because, as established, he can do all the voices.
It would either be that or Edwin Ton if he was in blooper mode.
Oh, God. Yes. Yes. You know me so well.
So, yeah. Thank you for that question, MVL, and we now move on to the next one.
That gave us some great mental images. Our next question comes from McDuck.
What book, film, or TV series did you start in 2017 that you really enjoyed, old or new?
I thought I'd be able to review this month, but it's being pushed back because of the Star Wars-shaped elephant in the room, as mentioned previously. Mr. Mercedes. Not that I really started it in 2017, I started reading the books in 2015, but I'm eagerly looking forward to the next season, and reviewing Murder next month, or the month after, whenever we sort out our backlog. Also, Pokemon Sun and Moon, if that counts. I'm an addict.
Yeah, I'm sure it counts. In terms of books, film, or TV, book series has been kind of a non-starter since I've been reading The Arabian Nights for the past 2 years, and I'm only halfway now, dear God.
Bit of a doorstopper?
A bit, yes. It's more, as for TV series I started, it's mainly been anime, I've got to be honest. I've been getting into many things, like Sven, I've been umming and ahhing about whether or not to review them, like Recovery of the MMO Junkie I really enjoyed and I'm considering reviewing at some point. I also started watching Dragon Ball Super in earnest, and I've been really enjoying that. And as soon as the Tournament of Power arc ends, I'm definitely going to review that, because, oh man, there's a lot to talk about. And one series I can definitely quickly cover here is Konosuba, which is... It's an anime fantasy series, but it's a comedy one, and one that's pretty hilarious as well, I'm not going to lie. Mainly because, well, a lot of the adventures can be summed up as anime version of D&D. No, not in it uses fantasy tropes, but it's made of a party of complete idiots or psychotics who just do not have any form of luck and keep ending in one terrible situation after another.
Oh, so our party in the test campaign.
Basically, like, their party includes one human boy who is transported to another world, but unlike all of the other tropes, doesn't end up with superpowers except for really high luck, and often gets his ass beaten up so many times. One goddess who has been depowered to healer and is useless in literally every other category. One tank who can't hit anything and is kind of a sadist, so she actually throws herself into harm's way, and on top of that, a mage who is extremely powerful but insists on using nothing but explosion magic, which means she can only realistically use one spell.
Oh my god, it is our party from the test campaign.
It's such an insanely dumb and hilarious series.
I would watch that.
I would definitely recommend it. But yeah, those are the anime series I started watching in 2017, and for some reason, I can never get myself to sit down and properly watch a Netflix series from start to finish. I don't know why.
Yeah, I feel you, although I know why I can't. Because ADHD.
Yeah, that would probably explain a lot.
Yeah, I lose interest as soon as a moth flies by. As for me, well, I tried to get into the Pokemon X and Y anime because I heard that it was considerably better, and also considerably better than Pokemon X and Y. But maybe I'm petty, but they've done nothing to improve the voice acting. It still sounds like I'm taking a step back into 1995. And I don't mean that in the nice nostalgic way. And I also don't mean that as a compliment, because there were actually some pretty well-acted anime in the mid-90s. Trigun. But Pokemon was not one of them.
Oh dear. And now we move on to our final question of the night, and as always, it comes from Toon Junkie.
So I heard you and Jonin just got back from your vacation to Venus in the 12th dimension. I have some correspondence on that planet. Tell me, did you see a cellar-pod by the name of Theodore Doodlepid? How is he? Is he still teaching high school?
Okay, let me break down this question first, because you know how it is after vacation. A part of you is still mentally where you just left, so I have to break down the Venus mode in my mind right now.
Yes, hopefully not literally, because the transporters can get a bit haywire, you know, sometimes I've heard people who have an entire finger that's still literally over there.
Yeah, I mean, to quote the 12th Doctor, don't be lasagna. I don't recall any Venusians by that name. You, Jonin?
No, I don't, but in fairness, when you're on vacation, you tend not to hang around high schools, just because that looks weird and awkward.
To be fair, tourists look weird and awkward anyway, but hanging around high schools, it just emphasizes the point.
Mm-hmm. Plus, you know, there was all those attractions to see. I mean, that statue, man, whew, that was amazing.
Yeah, and man, Starbucks literally is everywhere.
Yeah, I'm even just surprised they managed to keep coffee at normal temperature, because everything boils very quickly in that atmosphere.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about anyone else who's gone there, but I certainly needed a cold shower after coming back, and that sounded really wrong considering that Venus was the goddess of love. But I'm moving on to fade the heat from that terrible joke.
Indeed, yeah, so sorry we didn't meet your friend, although I can definitely recommend it, although, yeah, like Sven says, you're probably gonna need to be throwing cold water on yourself pretty much all day, every single day, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I joke about not being lasagna, but you also don't want to be the Christmas gravy.
Indeed. And on that wonderful note, thank you guys for sending us these questions. They, as you can tell, make for a very entertaining show, and we started this new year off right, so again, thank you and keep them coming.
Yeah, we mean it, by the way. We have only so many fans, so every question we get means a lot.
Indeed, yes. But it is now time for us to move on to
Reviews!
This is the section where the two of us review something we've read, watched, or played. Or, in this particular case, address the giant Star Wars-themed elephant in the room.
I've alluded to it several times throughout the course of this review so far, so now it's come time to actually address and zookeep the elephant in the room.
Indeed, yes. Or, to give the elephant its proper name, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. The follow-up to The Force Awakens, and the second part of the new trilogy that was... well, it was helmed by J.J. Abrams. I don't know if it still is, or if it's just known as the Disney trilogy now.
Well, it's weird. The Force Awakens was helmed by Abrams. He moved on, presumably, to direct 11/22/63 because that was a thing. And then Rian Johnson came in to direct Episode 8. He'll get into that. And then Colin Trevorrow was attached to Episode 9. He left and was replaced by J.J. Abrams, so make of that what you will.
Huh. I'm actually kind of worried because of Abrams' conclusions, but we'll get to that.
Well, to be fair, if I may go into J.J. Abrams for a moment, it is weird, the contrast between what he did with Star Trek and what he did with Star Wars, because with Star Trek it's widely accepted that he sort of didn't do a great job with those movies. Whereas with Star Wars, he is so far preferable to George Lucas, it's in a galaxy far, far away.
Indeed, yes. But, yes, here we are, The Last Jedi, and, well, at this point, it's pretty much redundant to say the reaction has been divisive, because that describes literally everything at this point.
You're not wrong. And I mean, I know from what we discussed about Episode 8 before we came here that you thought the movie was awesome. I also thought it was awesome, but I have some quibbles.
Yeah, like, it's perfectly fine to have, like, quibbles with a movie, or maybe just not generally enjoy it. It's just, the reason I say that is because, well, whether you like or love something on the internet these days, it always ends up being massively vocal, so I don't actually know if there really is a massive outcry against The Last Jedi, or if it's just a small but loud minority.
That's the thing, opinions have been literally everywhere. I mean, there is no unified consensus for The Last Jedi. I've seen people who are like me who liked it but didn't like certain things about it. I've seen people who absolutely loathed it and love to express loathing it. I've seen people who thought it was the second coming and absolutely loved expressing it. I have never personally borne witness to a more divisive movie.
Yeah, and oh my god, trying to remain spoiler-free, because I couldn't see it for the first 2 weeks, because I engaged in what is frankly a new family tradition in the past 2 years, but I had this thing of waiting until my sister comes down so we can both go and see it together, but trying to avoid spoilers for the first few weeks, that was just so difficult, to the point where I'm not even kidding about this. 2 maths teachers were yelling at each other about it from both the top and the bottom of a flight of stairs in the place that I work. I have never run down a corridor so fast to try and get out of the way.
Wow, not even whenever the edgelord kids come around.
No, I'm not kidding. It was literally 2 maths teachers arguing about whether or not a scene was stupid or not. I'm not...
Yeah, and that's pretty much been the sum of this entire movie experience so far, because the discourse I've seen on literally every platform I'm on has basically just been 2 people yelling at each other from 2 different flights of stairs.
Yeah, and before anyone tries to be smug and goes, oh, well, if you look at the Rotten Tomatoes review, that does not count. Rotten Tomatoes is so easily ganked by fake accounts, it's not even funny at this stage.
Yeah, you're not wrong there.
But... yeah, what we're trying to say with all this is we're going to try and keep this professional and just talk about the movie on its own merits, but given the fact that it's Star Wars, it means a lot to people, and the opinions against it have been very vocal, it's going to be hard to, again, just try and focus on its merits and not talk about the reaction.
Ye gods, yeah, and I don't know if it's the norm for people to be this extreme about their opinions on a movie, but then again, that's just about the sum of everything nowadays. You can't have an opinion without having someone think you deserve to boil on the sun for it.
It's really, really strange, but...
especially if you're American.
like I said, Star Wars does mean a lot to people, but I think it also doesn't help that this is a movie that goes out of its way to play with audience expectations. Like, the ending scene in The Force Awakens was Rey finding Luke Skywalker, who had been missing up until that point, and handing him Luke's own lightsaber back to him. And it's a scene that ends with all sorts of mysticism and wonder and makes you think, oh wow, what's going to happen from this point on? The Last Jedi continues that scene as Luke stares at the lightsaber in Rey's hand, takes it, looks at it for a moment, then tosses it over his shoulder before walking off.
Yeah, as I saw one reaction image put it, Star Wars, the Yeet Awakens.
Yeah. It's kind of a movie that will continuously toy with expectations, and some people did not take that well. But it's time we stop talking about that and get it on with the review. So, this is the plot. The First Order has been gaining traction since the Resistance's initial victory, and they've shattered the Republic. I don't know if that was a result of their evil death laser thing, or if it's just something that happened after. It's not entirely clear, but basically, the Resistance is now on the run, because the First Order has tracked them down and is continuously bombarding them. It's honestly not going very well. All they have left are a convoy of ships which are slowly running out of fuel, and they can't even jump to light speed because the First Order has found a way to basically track them through light speed, so wherever they go, they can follow. So most of the movie takes place over the course of 1 or 2 days as the ships are trying to escape, and Poe and Finn, along with a new companion, a cheerful mechanic named Rose, suddenly hit upon this idea of, hey, if we can disable the lightspeed tracker, we can allow the ships to get away. It's crazy, but it just might work.
A summary of Star Wars.
Indeed. And whilst all that's going on, Rey, like we mentioned, has found Luke Skywalker and not only wants him to train her in the ways of the Force, or at the very least explain what it is to her, but she also wants him to come back and lead the Resistance so that they can fight the dark side. However, Luke reveals that the reason he came here was not to train in the Force, but essentially to die, because he now believes that the Jedi Order was a mistake and it should die with him.
Yeah, I'll get into the similarities between that plot and a certain expanded universe plot with which I'm familiar later on.
Okay, so, yeah, as you probably gather from that, the tone is very different from Force Awakens. Like, Force Awakens was very positive and filled with wonder and mystery. The Last Jedi, just like The Empire Strikes Back before it, is considerably darker with a lot of tension that never really lets up, aside from one or two quick gags that appear. Not only that, the two movies, well, because they have two different directors, have a completely different style. See, the reason why I'm worried about J.J. Abrams being around for a conclusion is that Abrams has this writing concept he personally likes to call the mystery box. As in, you have to continuously add mysteries in order to intrigue the viewer. Like, he actually used the first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, as an example. Like, oh, who are these droids? Oh, who is Darth Vader? Oh, who is this Princess Leia? Oh, who is this Obi-Wan Kenobi? How will finding him help? That kind of thing. It's like you continuously pile on mysteries. That's why there was a lot in The Force Awakens that was just left hanging for any potential movies. Like, who were Rey's parents? Who is Snoke? And why did Kylo Ren turn? By contrast, Rian Johnson's style, it focuses on, the best way I can describe it is efficient plot progression. It's continuously keeping the plot moving, and unless it's important, you don't put that much time and focus on it. So it's, okay, this step is done, this step is done, this step is done, this step is done. That's not to say it's fast-paced, although it can feel like it sometimes. Like, one of my quibbles is that as part of Finn and Rose's plot, they go to an interplanetary casino, and that sequence did feel a bit rushed at times. But it's mainly because the important part of that sequence is A, how it ends, and B, the scene where Finn and Rose interact with some stable hands. Those are the two important scenes, and that's when the film slows down to give that some time and attention. Otherwise, it's just, okay, we need to go into this casino to find the codebreaker. The casino's bad. Here's why. Oh, and here's the codebreaker. Oh, right, they've been captured. Oh, and they found another codebreaker who lets them out. You know, it's very economical, is the best way I can say it. Like, unless it's a big moment that requires it to slow down and focus on the details, it doesn't matter. Just keep the plot going.
Yeah, essentially, and honestly, it's weird. I don't think the film was badly paced, but at the end of it, I felt the pressing need to just go back and watch it again, just to process everything I just watched. Because a lot happens in 2.5 hours, and I mean a lot.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a lot to process, and it zips by very quickly. Like, there are some important revelations and character changes there, but it kind of zips by them very quickly, and it's hard to say. Hey, I don't think it needed to slow down at all. If nothing else, just to correct Sven, it's 2 hours, 50 minutes, nearly 3 hours. The movie did not need to be any longer, but it covers a lot of ground.
Yeah, and I don't know, because you can't really cut that down without taking out a significant chunk of the important stuff that happens, because again, the content in this movie is absurd, but I'll just leave it at saying that it is a lot to take in. Like, I'm still trying to process my full thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, like, maybe some of the action sequences could have been cut down, but at the same time, there are some significant emotional beats in those, plus one of the action sequences in the casino, it's more about inspiring the stable hands as part of the theme, but I'll get into it. Like, honestly, the only thing that would have been cut down, and this is one of my minor quibbles of the movie, is that there's one scene when they do find the code breaker that they want to show that the world isn't as simple as you think it is. And you find out that, yes, the casino is run by evil weapons traders, but the weapons traders have also given weapons to the Resistance, which doesn't really go anywhere and doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things. Like, yeah, we knew the casino people were douchebags, but that doesn't alter the story in any way.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm one of the minority whenever I say that I actually thought that the Space Monte Carlo sequence was one of the high points of the movie, but there were a few parts of it that maybe didn't serve much purpose.
Yeah, like the whole Monte Carlo plotline, I will agree with you. I actually kind of like it. I mean, it felt a bit rushed at times, but it was good thematically. It also added a bit to the Star Wars world. It was more that one particular scene with the code break on the spaceship. That was the one I felt, okay, why did we bring this up?
Yeah, and that's completely fair. And honestly, there's actually one plot line that I think could have been shortened if logic was applied, which I'm surprised it wasn't, because Johnson like you said, has a very straightforward directorial style, so I'm amazed someone didn't just think, during the entire mutiny plotline that was going on with Poe, this all could have been avoided if the Resistance High Command had just shared the plot.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, okay, this is getting into some minor spoilers, but I think it's worth addressing. I'm in two minds about this. On the one hand, I do kind of agree with you that, yeah, they just sort of explained the full plan. On the other, I feel that, okay, part of Poe's character development in this is that he has to learn to stop being an action hero and be an actual leader. Because one of the things that happens in the opening sequence is he encourages that, come on, we can take out one of their dreadnoughts. All we need to do is just believe. I know the odds are against us. And yeah, they do take out the dreadnought, but half the fleet gets wiped out in the process. So
yeah, because Galactic Empire.
Yeah. So I do kind of agree with you, but part of that arc is that he's been demoted to captain at this point, and frankly, it's kind of more he thinks he should be the leader and they should be leading an attack, when in actuality, he's a lowly soldier and they don't have to explain anything to him. Not really.
Okay, that's fair enough, because, I mean, we just got done with the Mass Effect series, and several instances of that come up in the dialogue on information being on a need-to-know basis. It's just that I feel like the plot could have been shortened, and that really Resistance High Command is in no actual place to keep people out of the loop whenever there's about 8 of them left.
Okay, yeah, I suppose that's true. It's one of those things where I'm in two minds where I agree with you, but it's also, I kind of like that ultimately Poe's character arc, again, trying not to spoil too much here, but it's more about trying to be a leader and getting an idea of what the full situation is, and not being an action hero who sticks his nose up at authority if the plan doesn't sound cool enough to him.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, because you know me better than just about anyone I've ever written with, and you can vouch for the emphasis I place on character development. My contention is that there may have been a more logical way to go around it.
Yeah.
What that way might have been, I don't know, but that's just my theory.
I suppose it could have been solved if they had started trying to explain to him and then he interrupted them, which actually would have been in his character at that point, but...
Yes, it would have.
But yeah, there are some minor quibbles, but honestly, it's like I said, due to the thematic elements of the character development, I still freaking love it. Mainly just because, well, there are two things. First off, there are loads of great action scenes, and the tension, oh my god, this movie manages to hold your tension and be engaging for so long, which is actually kind of impressive. Like, it doesn't feel oppressive, but it's still... I was never bored watching this entire movie at all.
Oh yeah, you're not going to be bored, because, as established, this movie is essentially 2 hours and 50 minutes of non-stop action. And what's amazing is that the action never actually gets boring. It's not like the 5 hours of action that they crammed, well, actually the 7 hours of action that they crammed into the prequel trilogy all totaled that meant absolutely nothing.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. I think it's because the action always meant something, whether it was to the characters, to the situation at hand, or I guess thematically with everything that's going on. So that's why it definitely felt a lot more important. Like, I'm tiptoeing around this just for the sake of spoilers. That light speed jump.
Yeah, I mean, I have problems with the whole Resistance High Command plotline, but it leads to one of the coolest things in the entire Star Wars franchise. And that's comparing it to the expanded universe, which got so mind-bogglingly epic it was actually stupid at some points.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of funny that you brought that up, because I promised I wasn't going to do this, but one of the things people are being continuously bringing up is that, oh, it suspends my disbelief way too much. I mean, the Force can now bring down lightning and do all of these magical things. Like, the Force can just do anything at this point. Yes, it can.
Pretty much. Do I need to point out that Star Wars The Force Unleashed is still canon?
How?
Because it was Lucas.
Oh, God. Yeah, just... These are the same people who also say the same sentence, I can't believe we lost the expanded universe for this stuff. I've read the Jedi Academy trilogy. Just in that series alone, that had people using the Force to summon illusionary vipers, possess kids so that they can fight lightsaber battles for them, and create fucking tornadoes. Because this is the funny thing, the Force doesn't exist, and there was never any rules established about what it can and can't do. I mean, for God's sake, canonically, Emperor Palpatine used the Force to impregnate a woman in some backwater planet, for crying out loud. And that's canon.
Yeah, and I mean, while we're on the topic of the expanded universe, let me just pitch this line of reasoning to all of you expanded universe junkies out there. Emperor Palpatine summoned a black hole! That happened!
Oh my god.
And you're claiming this is ridiculous? Another thing that they brought up is the, this is a minor spoiler, but the, I guess, quote-unquote, Force bond between Rey and Kylo Ren, which I personally could have done without, because the entire idea of a fomance between the two of them makes my skin crawl, but, the Force bond between them, that was the entire point of the Knights of the Old Republic games. I say that as someone whose favorite entry in the entire franchise is Knights of the Old Republic.
Indeed, yes, and in actuality, that was also established in The Force Awakens as well. There was that whole mind-reading scene, so that's also the reason why I don't count it as a spoiler, because it's just expanded upon from that point.
Yeah, and actually I'll get into the Knights of the Old Republic thing later on in this review too, because we have to discuss certain characters, of course.
Indeed, yes. And you know what? This is the thing. I think we're going to go into a huge spoiler section because we can only dance around plot points for so long, but I will say just quickly the broad strokes of why I like it. Obviously, the film looks good, sounds good, the actors do an absolutely stellar job, even just some of the bit parts, like the Dreadnought that gets blown up. I actually really love the grumpy commander who only had a bit part, like, we should have had fighters defending us about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, that guy was great. Because he actually felt like a believable military officer.
Indeed, yes. And just thematically, I described it on Twitter as an examination/deconstruction that I didn't realize I wanted or needed, but now that it's happened, I freaking love it. Like, the scene when I was watching it, that I suddenly got what they were doing and could fully get behind it, is that Luke reluctantly agrees to give Rey 3 lessons about the Force. And the first one is, Luke has Rey focus on the environment around her and reminding people what the Force is. Because initially, when he asks her what the Force is, she said, it's a power that allows you to mind control people and lift rocks. But Luke reminds her that the Force is life energy. It connects to all living things and minds and surrounds them. As he's doing this, he gives her the theme of, you can't say that if someone dies, the light side of the Force dies with me. That's vanity.
Well, okay, what's funny is I actually missed that part because I had to take a bathroom break after a gigantic soda. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, she's sensitively all ironed around her, and Luke's basically just telling her and the audience that, yeah, it's ridiculous to say that the light side of the Force will disappear if all Jedi will die, because the Force is literally everything. It's the balance between life and death. That's why he was on that island specifically, because there is a good chunk of the light side of the Force where...
Yeah, like you said, and it actually plays upon Again, a theme that was established in Knights of the Old Republic, which I'm gonna keep bringing up because there are actually some amazing parallels here, and the fandom have noted it. But it's actually a theme that's discussed in Knights of the Old Republic 2, where, incidentally, a disgruntled ex-Jedi, who, in that game, spoilers, is actually the big bad, is actually seeking to destroy the Force, not realizing that that's impossible because the Force is everything. It's not just the Jedi and the Sith. So it's touching upon that point again, and I have to say, I love that they're getting into that, I guess, black and white, the Jedi really screwed up philosophy that the Expanded Universe touched upon, and that the fandom has also noticed.
Yeah, like, it's getting into the full examination of what the Jedi means. Like, the theme is two things. It's refocusing everything back on the spirit rather than the lore. And this is why people obsessing over what the Force can and can't do annoys me, because it completely missed the point. Because, as Luke points out, the Jedi doctrine, and it's time to move on. As part of that, the other theme, which is why I mentioned the stable hands in the casino, is that the other part of the movie is about passing on to the next generation. It's another way of saying, okay, look, the Skywalkers were great and all, but we have to move beyond them now. It's time for a new generation to take over.
Yeah, and I am so tempted to spoil something, because one of J.J. Abrams' mystery box mysteries was sort of dropped right on its face in emphasizing that point, and I actually really liked it.
I think I know what you're talking about. So, yeah, before we get into the big spoiler section, because if it's the moment I think it is, I'm dying to talk about it too. But anything else you want to say about why you like it in broad strokes, Sven?
Yeah, honestly, I think we've covered it. I like that it actually gets into the grayer philosophy. I've seen people call it an edgelord movie, but it really isn't, because Star Wars has gone this dark before. I mean, Knights of the Old Republic, which I love because it is dark.
Indeed, and also I think it's nowhere near as dark. Like, it's nothing like Rogue One. It's nowhere near as dark as that. No. I mean, for God's sake, there is an island of porgs on it.
Yeah, an island of porgs, and Luke and Rey keep destroying the scenery and annoying the groundskeepers, which I found hilarious.
Indeed, yes. And also, there's stuff like, everyone's continuously making quips to light the tension, and apart from that, the reason it talks about passing on to the next generation is that it's establishing that there are heroes. That's why the heroes do get positive victories, and it's still very uplifting at the end. That's why I said it was darker than Force Awakens, but I wouldn't really describe it as a dark movie, as there is a lot of tension, but things do turn out good for the heroes in the end.
Yeah, and honestly, in that regard, I'd say that it's not even as dark as The Empire Strikes Back, because that movie ended on a downer.
Oh god, yes.
Beyond that, what I can say I liked about it in the non-spoiler section, porgs and BB-8.
Indeed, yes, they're still both adorable. In fact, the porgs, I do like, just as a filmmaker, because do you want to know how they were created?
How?
Okay, the islands they were set on, it's an island off the coast of, well, Ireland. Unfortunately, whilst it all looks great visually, it's a puffin sanctuary. And they couldn't get rid of the puffins, at least try to shoo them away, because, again, it's a protected area. And they thought, well, we could try digitizing them out, but then they realized there's so many of them, it would take way too long to remove them. You know what? Let's turn them into aliens. We could probably make some merchandising out of it.
Oh my god. So, essentially, plotting on the spot.
Yes.
I approve.
So yeah, that's why we have porgs in the movie. Puffins everywhere.
Wow, I learned something today and it has brightened my day for it.
But the spoiler-free review of this is, aside from a few quibbles about things that could have been improved or probably shouldn't have been in the movie, honestly, I really like The Last Jedi. I'd probably have to watch it again to see if I would still call it my favourite Star Wars movie, but just based on the themes alone, I would say, yes, I liked it. Would that be a good summary for you, Sven, as well? Or?
I liked it. I'm still processing it and sort of analyzing the deeper meanings, let's say, and beyond the quibbles we mentioned, and one plot point that, on the one hand, I see why they did it, but on the other hand, super annoyed the in-depth long-term plotter in me, I liked it.
Okay. So, we are now reaching the big spoiler section. Seriously, if you don't want to be spoiled for The Last Jedi, skip ahead to minutes. Okay. Right. Where the heck do we start?
Well, I'm stumbling over my words right now because that's pretty much my mind whenever it comes to this movie. Vague thoughts about epic visuals and so how about we touch upon the huge plot points in the order with which they become relevant?
Okay, that makes sense. So, I guess, first off, one point which I still think it's ridiculous to try and claim that the Force follows any kind of rules, because it never has and never will. That said, the one moment I did find questionable was Leia flying back to the spacecraft after being shot out into space.
Yeah, I don't know how to quantify that one, because again, it's the Force and there's really no established rules, and apparently someone actually did that in the expanded universe, because everyone did everything in the expanded universe. But it still looked a little weird.
Yeah, I think that's hit the nail on the head. Like, I literally didn't mind any other of the Force applications, because there was a good reason for it, and it did work thematically. And also, yeah, I'm glad that Leia does know how to use the Force. I mean, for the love of God, she is the Skywalker, you might as well train her. But at the same time, it did look kind of weird. Like, I don't know whether it was just the pose Leia did, or the fact that you could slowly see the ice crystals forming around her, and then just her suddenly waking up and flying back. But I don't know, it just felt weird.
Yeah, visually it could have been done better, because it felt a little impossible to suspend our disbelief.
Yeah, it kind of pushed it that little bit too far. Like, everything else I was perfectly okay with, but that was the one scene which I thought, okay, that's very strange. In fact,
yeah, Force spacesuit.
In fact, funnily enough, that was the exact scene the maths teachers were yelling at each other about. So I was kind of warned to it, because the only bit I heard of that conversation was, I liked it, but that one scene with Leia was so stupid. And I was like, no, run away.
Yeah, get gone real quick.
Yeah, so I kind of expected that something would happen with Leia. I did not expect that. Yeah, after that moment, I guess the next point would be, well, Luke Skywalker's bitter right now.
Yeah, and this is one of the huge controversies about this movie, because the reason why he's bitter is sort of, well, let's just say unfortunate things happened that were his fault.
Well, it's the spoiler section, so we can freely talk about it. Basically, he had a moment of weakness. He thought about killing Kylo Ren and even activated his lightsaber, but then realized, what am I doing? This is so stupid. Unfortunately, that's when Kylo Ren woke up. And it's kind of awkward to say, no, Ben, I'm not trying to kill you, when he has a bloody lightsaber in his hand.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen people argue that it's out of character for Luke, but this is the thing. We can't judge Luke as a character post-original trilogy anymore, because we don't have the expanded universe on which to base him. Because the thing was, Luke was just kept being a straightforward hero in the expanded universe, and I think people are used to that. And the idea that this hero who was incorruptible in the original trilogy would be incorruptible now, which I would also add, he wasn't incorruptible. He had a tendency to violent bursts of murderous anger.
Yeah, like not even in the expanded universe. In Return of the Jedi, he almost killed Darth Vader, but then regained his senses and actually decided, yeah, you know what, no, I'm a Jedi like my father before me. He's had those moments of weakness before. It's just that he's also had a lot of compassion to go along with it. That's what made him a hero in the original trilogy.
Yeah, and the thing about this is, I see why people, and apparently those people including Mark Hamill himself, didn't really like the idea that an older Luke would do something like that, but he's done that before, and let's be honest, age makes people bitter.
Indeed.
It just happens.
Indeed, yes. Although, I also want to bring up, Mark Hamill, that one clip was taken out of context, because he said he was nervous about doing it at first, but he said after seeing the movie, he actually liked what they did. And since then, he's also released another tweet saying, I really wish I hadn't mentioned those quibbles. All I wanted was a great movie, and Rian Johnson delivered. So sorry, dude, for giving the other side ammunition.
Oh, so I was bamboozled like I have been by a dozen political assholes in my life. Thanks, Star Wars fandom.
Yeah, he did say it at one point, but he's come out since then and has actually apologized, saying, I really wish I hadn't said that because I do genuinely like the movie, so...
Yeah, and the thing is, I should have known that he did like the movie because he is not phoning it in this movie. Mark Hamill is just a gem in The Last Jedi.
Oh god, yes, his acting is phenomenal. He actually does have some really great snarky humor as well.
Yeah, and honestly, say what you will about the tone it sets for the rest of the movie, but I laughed my ass off when he just yeeted that lightsaber over the cliff.
Indeed, yes. There is one other bit, but I'll get to it later because we're doing this in order, and let's just say I really like Luke and how he ended, but we'll come to that later.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I'll set up for that discussion later by saying that I loved the line, "It's amazing. Everything you just said was wrong."
Oh god, yes. So, the whole codebreaker bit, it's kind of hard to say which one comes first, because it started off earlier, but the Rey stuff is also going on at the same time, so... Oh, whatever. I'll break it up just for the sake of variety. The whole codebreaker plot, I actually like the fact that it's a complete subversion, as in, oh, it's a crazy plan that might just work. But it didn't work because the odds were 1,000,000 to 1.
Yeah, essentially, it looked like it worked, then it didn't work, then shenanigans happened.
Yeah. Oh, look, this shady guy who we found in a random prison turns out to be completely untrustworthy.
Yeah, as they tend to. Also, may I just point out that DJ, the Codebreaker, gave me serious vibes of Volk from Fire Emblem.
Oh god, yes, he did now I think about it.
Because, let's be honest, he's a vaguely off-putting guy that they meet in a prison, and it turns out he has no morality at all.
And on top of that, the whole way that scene ended, like, I actually really like the relationship that developed between Finn and Rose. This is skipping ahead, but some people are always saying, why wouldn't they let Finn destroy the laser that was being used to get into the base? Well, aside from the fact that we would have wanted Finn to die, honestly, what would it have accomplished in the long run?
Yeah, honestly, there was not even a guarantee that it would work.
Yeah, and he was just, I'm gonna crash my speeder into it and hope for the best.
Which again sort of sums up a running theme between all three protagonists, not thinking this through.
Indeed, yes. And on top of that, I do like that out of all the cast, those two were the ones inspiring everyone, because the reason Rose gets involved was because she was inspired by Finn, although admittedly she catches him when Finn's trying to run away and tries to drag him into the brig for deserting, so...
Yeah, let me just point out that Finn must have one hell of his charisma stat to have been able to talk his way out of that one.
Indeed, yes. And, I like it that those two are the ones that inspire the stable hands, which makes me facepalm when everyone's going, oh, who is the stable boy? The younger generation being inspired by new heroes. That's the entire point of the goddamn movie.
I think some people might just be over-focusing on that, but it is sort of the point of the whole movie. In fact, I would say that the point of the whole movie is letting go of the past and looking forward into the future, which, honestly, as a side note, really is a message that I needed going out of 2017.
Oh god, yeah. I also did like Rose's last line of, that's how we're gonna win this war, not by fighting those we hate, but protecting those we love, which, it might not work practically, but it is still a nice sentiment to take.
I think the exact line was, not by killing those we hate, but helping those we love, which is pretty much the sentiment of the entire Star Wars franchise.
Actually, yeah. Oh, wow, yeah, that is actually, again, how Luke and Vader defeated the Emperor, now that I think about it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, although it did involve killing someone that they hated, but...
Well, it was more someone Darth Vader hated, and he just threw him down a well. But anyway...
Yeah, and then he force exploded because George Lucas.
Oh, God. That was always very strange. Speaking of strange things that are happening with the Force, let's talk about Rey's character development. Because a lot of it, as well as learning from Luke Skywalker, is also Force bonding with Kylo Ren.
Yeah, and... okay, that last plot conflicts me so much because, let's be honest, Kylo Ren's backstory is sympathetic, but Kylo Ren himself is not.
Yeah.
And I've had a conflict about this because it actually harkened to how I felt way back in the old days about the plotline that was hinted at in Bleach involving Orihime and Ulquiorra, how Orihime sort of eventually winds up bringing out the human side in him, and I realized I could believe that plotline because it was somebody showing humanity to someone who never knew it, and who knew nothing but evil. But I don't like the Rey-Kylo plotline, because this is somebody who's f***ing up of his own volition.
Indeed, yes. I mean, I will admit, as it played out, aside from the shirtless Kylo Ren gag, which I did kind of like, because, again, it's sort of making fun of the premise that, oh yeah, you're going to have a psychic bond when it's convenient.
Yeah, pretty much.
Just a way. But I will admit, I had the same worries about it as you did, because I was just thinking, oh really, after everything they did with Kylo, they're going to try and convert it back with this, and yeah, it did seem weird that they were sort of trying to force a romance, but at the very least a deep friendship between the two of them, implying that the two of them would form a bond, and then Rey would be able to convert Kylo back to the light side, and it's definitely what a lot of fans were thinking of as well. Then we got to the scene against Snoke, which was my sister's favourite scene in the whole movie, and I can kind of understand why.
Yeah, and I'll touch on my annoyance with that scene really quickly, because that was the scene that I was talking about earlier. As a long-term planner who likes big, overreaching, far expansive villains, the way they dealt with Snoke really cheesed me. I see why they're doing it, to set up Kylo Ren as more of a threat, but I still don't feel threatened by Kylo Ren.
Well, it's actually kind of weird how I feel about this, because, well, there are two cliches that they subverted in that scene which I actually like. First off, Rey trying to use the Force pull to get her lightsaber back from Snoke's chair, because that's where it was stowed, only for Snoke to use the Force to redirect it so that it spins around, hits Rey in the back of the head, and then goes right back on the throne.
Yeah, I did like that.
Yeah, but the other one I also liked is the manner of his death is how, well, of all the places to put a lightsaber, which is a gigantic beam sword that can kill you, especially from Jedi who can control objects and distances, why would you put it right next to you?
Yeah, this was a mistake Palpatine made, and I'm amazed it wasn't exploited.
Indeed. I mean, I guess technically this is what happens when you do it when a Sith is around, but this was sort of the reason why I was eventually okay with it. I mean, the brief moments we got with Snoke with Andy Serkis's acting were pretty awesome. In fact, I even forgot during that movie that Snoke was a completely stupid name. But the reason why I forget it, and this was a criticism the Walkers brought up, is that thanks to this, we have no idea who Snoke even is. But the reason why I'm okay with it is because, well, frankly, in Return of the Jedi, we didn't know who Palpatine was. He was just the Emperor. He showed up one day, and he was evil for no apparent reason. He was just so incredibly powerful that he controlled Darth Vader. That's why, for someone who was so powerful, he gets taken out in one shot by Darth Vader, because, honestly, he's the character we actually give a toss about. He's just this big, expansive evil that's there to, well, A, to run the organization, and B, to sort of set up how it got to this stage in the first place. I mean, we didn't need an explanation for it before, we just knew that, oh, he's the Emperor, he's the one who turned Darth Vader. Okay, works, and he's powerful, makes sense. We didn't need much more than that. And in fact, a lot of people forget about this because the prequels exist. Initially, people didn't like the fact that Darth Vader was tied to the Emperor because they felt it made him look like a glorified flunky.
Wow, I did not know that was actually an opinion that people had.
Yeah, that was... Admittedly, this was way, way back in the 80s when the film came out. But yeah, that was one criticism of it at the time. And the thing is, you could develop a backstory for Snoke, like you did with the Emperor in the prequel trilogy. But here's the thing. Yes, it's an explanation, and yeah, you got to see it. But it was crap, and we regretted it so much. I mean, again... The explanation for this is that the Emperor was apparently playing the long game and was so ridiculously powerful that not only was he able to prevent the Jedi from sensing what was going on, although, in fairness, it wasn't that hard. They had to let a freaking child to point out, maybe the reason a planet's missing from the Star Chart is because someone deleted it on the computer. But,
so bad.
Yeah, but on top of that, again, it's implied that he used the Force to impregnate someone on a distant planet. And not only is it a dumb explanation, but it's one that opens up so many random questions like, if you could do that, why not do it with a woman who wants to work for you, or actually wants to raise a child of the dark side, and B, someone who's next door, someone who is nearby, where you can actually see the child grow, and you don't have to do all this ridiculous manipulating bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, but I feel like there could have been an opportunity here to create a villain who wasn't just ha-ha evil cutout. Because I feel like we had the Emperor in Return of the Jedi and it worked, but I do sort of want to move on from the Lucasisms. Having said that, the one thing I do like about this plot is that, once again, it plays back to the parts of the expanded universe that I actually loved. Not only did Kylo Ren name-drop the Sith, canonizing that entire plotline, this movie actually plays on the Sith rule of two. For those who don't know, it's a stipulation established in the expanded universe that there must always be two Sith in the universe. One, a master to hold the power, and an apprentice to seek the power. And that played out magnificently here.
Yeah, it was a great handover of the events because, well, here's the thing. Initially, it doesn't seem like that. It just seems like Snoke is closing his eyes and sensing that, yes, Kylo Ren is going to kill you, child. He is thinking about reaching out with that lightsaber and striking down the true enemy, only for him to get suddenly stabbed by the lightsaber that was on the belt, because that was what Kylo Ren was doing. And then Kylo and Rey fight each other back to back. They get rid of some guards, only for Kylo to then suddenly turn around and say, Rey, join me and we can rule the galaxy together.
Yep, the cycle continues because of course the cycle would continue with a guy like Kylo Ren. Also, may I point out that lightsaber fight? That looked like some of the fan-made duels I watched in the mid-2000s, and I actually do mean that as a compliment. Because some of those were just so knocked-down, drag-out, brutal that you could actually suspend your disbelief that they were fighting with laser beams.
Indeed, yeah, that was a really awesome fight, and mentioned specifically on Twitter that this is a scene where characters actively avoid the cliches by going, actually, no, that's not what I would do in this situation, and that suited Kylo Ren to a T, and this is why I ultimately got over my queasiness with the Force Link subplot and the Snoke being killed off so early, because, well, here's the thing, I agree with you that Kylo Ren may not be the most threatening villain, but he is the most complex, and that's actually what I'm liking, that we're going into this third plot with a complex villain. Note that I didn't say sympathetic, because if this had actually been the moment when Kylo Ren turns good, that would have been the part that I would get pissed off at. Because, well, let me be blunt. Like you said, Kylo Ren is not sympathetic, and Rey did nothing to actually lure Kylo Ren back to the good side. She just went, well, there is good in you. I can sense it. I can drag it out of you. And it's like, but no, you don't know Kylo Ren at all. In fact, the first time with the Force thing was you bitching at him for killing Han.
Yeah, so I mean, I get you. I still think that Kylo Ren is frankly pathetic and is only deserving of sympathy for the unsuspecting, horribly manipulated by the dark side teenager that he was once. But he is the more complex character by a long shot, especially now that all of the Snoke's potential is laying in two pieces on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I said, that's why I'm okay with... I get you that it would have been interesting to have this full idea of what Snoke's plan was, but I do also kind of like that we're now getting a villain who... I think they're threatening for different reasons. Snoke is like a sniper rifle that he's carefully aiming for his target and waiting for just the right moment. And in fact, it's one of the things I actually liked is the revelation that the Force Link wasn't actually destiny or anything. It was basically Snoke amplifying it in order to convince Rey to come over to the spaceship.
Yeah, and honestly, the big reason why I still have second thoughts about that plotline is my jam is plotter villains who happen to be powerful. Not Aizen, because that was dumb. But I do like long game villains who receive like a fitting payoff at the end. So I guess in that sense, they did a good thing because they swerved my expectations.
That is intimidating, and I do get it would have been cool, but it is kind of similar to Palpatine, and I do like this new variation where Kylo Ren he's not really threatening because he's competent, he's threatening because he's like a grenade about to explode, and now he has all the power in the universe. Like, for all we know, he's just going to be sending first-order ships to just blow up random planets for no reason other than it looked at him funny.
Yeah, so in other words, we've gone from Space Stalin to Space Kim Jong-un.
Basically, yeah. I can kind of see where you're coming from, but I did personally like that. But as for Rey herself, there are a lot of people who still claim that she's one-dimensional and doesn't have an explanation for why she's so powerful, which the second one I'll get to in a moment, but the one-dimensional bit I don't see because, okay, I actually watched part of The Force Awakens again, and I'm actually getting kind of annoyed of the whole Mary Sue complaint because, well, one, I can't remember if I mentioned this in the original Force Awakens review, but it was brought up by Max Landis, and his original reasoning for using that term specifically was because, and I quote, Force Awakens feels like fan fiction, which, that was a stupid complaint in the first place, so...
Yeah, it really is.
But the criticisms that Rey is one-dimensional, it's not that, it's more that she definitely does have flaws. She's not only incredibly driven and, let's say, very forceful with other people.
Yeah, I mean, at one point, she actually reacts to the revelation of what Luke did in the backstory by physically attacking him.
And it goes into part of this idea. This is, well, the second part of the theme is that she's continuously tempted to the dark side, namely because, okay, in The Force Awakens, she was initially hesitant to get involved with the Force or anything, partially because it was a terrifying power she didn't understand, but also because she had this whole thing where all she wanted to do was get back to Jakku so that she could find her parents, or wait for her parents to come back. But part of the admittedly poor timing was, you are now awakened to the Force. Oh, and by the way, you know deep down your parents aren't coming back.
Also, may I just point out the revelation that her parents were literally nobody.
Yeah.
They were just pathetic drunks who dumped her for money.
Yeah, that was a revelation in this movie that pissed a lot of people off, and I freaking love it, because again, as I was building to, part of Rey's character development is that in this movie, it's that, okay, I accept that the Force is this big thing, but I need to know how I fit into all of this. What my purpose is. Maybe it has some connection with my parents, and that was a lot of fan theories, like, oh, she is in fact a Kenobi, or, oh, she is in fact a distant Skywalker. And like you said, the big plot revelation is that she knows deep down her parents are nobody. There's no secret chosen one, there's no special bloodline reason for why she is a Force user, she just is.
Yeah, and honestly, that may be my favorite part of the entire movie. And that may sound weird, but philosophically, just bear with me. Because, for starters, it plays into my belief that anyone can be a hero. And for 2, it actually again harkens back to what was discussed in the Knights of the Old Republic games, which, as you can probably tell by now, I freaking love. The idea that greatness can come from nothing. And, in fact, in those games, and this actually plays into the idea that Rey could be so powerful being a nobody, in those games you actually train Jedi from grown adults who were nobody.
Yeah, that's precisely it. In fact, I actually do wonder, because I was thinking about this, when was it ever stated that there had to be qualifications to be a Jedi? When was it ever genetic? Because initially, in The New Hope, there was never any suggestion that Luke could be a Jedi because he was Force sensitive. He just said, I want to become a Jedi. And Obi-Wan said, well, great, in that case, here's a lightsaber, here's a laser droid, and we'll teach you the basics. It was like the key/chi it was based on. The idea that anyone can use the Force, you just have to actually train to do it. But no one bothered because, well, as Han said, you could just have a blaster at your side.
Yeah, and actually, now that you think of it, that could be construed as another failing of the Jedi Order, because they only trained Force sensitives. Instead of the idea that everyone can feel the Force, which is pretty much an established idea all through the universe, that they only trained Force sensitives, and also only trained children, despite the fact that in previous games it was shown that fully grown adults who came from nothing could become Jedi.
Yeah, exactly, and the initial reason we brought out this Force-sensitive nonsense of the Chosen One bloodline, the whole reason midichlorians were even brought up was because Lucas couldn't think of a reason for why the Jedi would just pick up this random kid off a planet, which, on a complete side note, takes away from the whole sense of character, but also adds this whole ridiculous expectation for people that there has to be some kind of special bloodline trait that allows you to use the Force, which just feels incredibly wrong. And again, that's why one of my favourite parts of the movie is the revelation that Rey's parents were nobody. It's just, Rey is just that good.
Yeah, and honestly, I sort of worried in the back of my mind, as awesome as I thought it would be if it turned out she was important in the context of the universe, I worried about how it would affect her character if she was somehow destined for greatness, so to speak. So to know now that she was just someone who happened to be powerful and happened to become a hero, that's my jam. I love her character even more, and I wasn't even in the crowd that thought she was boring to begin with.
Yeah, it sets up this perfect arc for her now that, okay, she's had this whole fuss about who am I, do I deserve to be here, was there some great destiny planned for me, and this movie is basically about clearing that out and saying, alright Rey, you know who you are now, become a hero based on what you believe to be important.
Yeah, that's basically it, and honestly I think the series is even better for it, because it's a clean slate for starters, and just look at the contrast it sets up. We have Rey, who was born from nothing, born to nothing and rose from nothing, and who has become one of the last hopes of the Resistance. And then we have Kylo Ren, who was born to the single most powerful Force-sensitive bloodline in the universe, and look how that turned out.
Oh, yeah. That is actually a really good contrast how you put it up. In fact, that's just making me incredibly excited for the final battle now.
Same.
Yeah, I really do like that. And another thing I also really love, Luke's death.
Yeah. I mean, you just about knew it was gonna happen, because that seems to be the theme of sequel trilogy. Han went in Blaze of Lightsaber Fury. I figured Luke was gonna go in this movie because it's his focus, and they would continue on with that. But man, the way they did it, with the binary sunset and the callback to Obi-Wan, could not have been more perfect.
Yeah, I think in my case it was the Force Ghost thing he did specifically, because yeah, him looking up at the sunset was a nice callback, but okay, just for those of you who haven't seen the movie but decide to listen through the spoiler section anyway, in which case, thank you, I hope we've convinced you to watch this. There's this moment where the Resistance is cornered, it looks like there's no way out, and then Luke shows up, and initially it looks like he's now suddenly become super powerful because he's just taken like a volley from like hundreds if not thousands of laser bolts. And the moment that made me laugh, which was when he just took a few steps forward, then dusted his coat off.
Yeah, peak Luke right there. Has there ever been a Skywalker who was an extra?
Indeed. And then it led to a pretty cool looking fight against Kylo Ren where he's swinging lightsabers but Luke is dodging. And there's two parts I really love about this. The first off is it eventually leads to the big revelation that it's been a Force ghost that Luke is projecting from the island this entire time. So he's basically humiliated Kylo Ren in front of everyone because whilst he's battling with this seemingly impossible foe, the Resistance are running away.
Yeah, and speaking of humiliating Kylo Ren, may I just call back to the line I mentioned earlier, because at one point Kylo Ren actually says to him something along the lines of, "Your Republic is dead, your Resistance is dead, there's no hope for you," and Luke responds with, "It's amazing. Everything you just said was wrong."
Oh god, yes. He then follows it up with, "The Resistance is not dead, I won't die here, and I'm not the Last Jedi."
Yeah, and I love, again, the callbacks to Obi-Wan, because I think either before or after this scene, he leads into or follows it up with, "Strike me down now, and I'll be with you forever."
Yeah, that line. I just loved it so much, because there are two ways to interpret it. The first is that he could mean it in the literal Obi-Wan sense, "I will be haunting you," which would be great to have in Episode 9, that Kylo Ren is trying to run the First Order with a ghost version of Luke taunting him, almost like an anti-version of Obi-Wan. Like, it is going, "No, destroy the planet!" Yeah, because no one's ever tried that before. Shut up, Luke! Who are you talking to? No one!
God, I would pay money to see that, and I probably will.
Yeah, but even if that doesn't happen, I also like the second interpretation of it, which is, "I will be with you forever," as in, you will be humiliated forever that I've been a Force ghost this entire time and you didn't notice.
Yeah, in either case it's perfect because, let's be honest, Kylo Ren has it coming. Also, that was one hell of a voice break.
Yeah. Also, on top of that, it calls back to, I don't know whether this is intentional or not, but it calls back to something about Return of the Jedi, because Rey, when she first goes up to Luke, talks about how, "You were the one who defeated the Emperor. You were the one who stood up to Darth Vader and turned him." And Luke was like, "It wasn't really that great." When you actually think about the sequence of events, yeah, it really wasn't. Literally, all Luke did was fight Darth Vader for a bit and then said, "No, I'm not going to turn to the dark side," and then just stood there getting electrocuted. The reason it worked was because he showed enough compassion. He recognized who Darth Vader was and that he could be turned, despite both Obi-Wan and Yoda, the supposedly wise ones, going, no, there's no hope for him. Kill him now. Kill him. Why would you kill him, Luke?"
Right.
Yeah, but Luke saw through all of that and showed compassion to Darth Vader, which is what convinced Darth Vader to turn on the Emperor in a move that it did kill him.
Yeah, so essentially all he had to do was show a little bit of human decency and voila.
Indeed. So it makes sense that Luke is not really an all-powerful Jedi. What he is he's good at recognizing what people need. In the case of Darth Vader, it was that he just needs someone to actually tap into him and remind him that there was a good person under there. In the case of the Resistance, he recognized that they need an inspirational figure to protect them. In terms of Kylo Ren, it's knowing that, okay, I need to give him one last chance, but in a way that it's not going to be easy for him if he fails.
Essentially, yes. What better ultimatum can you give him? He's someone that, at this point, the only chance you can give him is, hey, change your ways or your life is gonna be hell.
Indeed, yes. Like, if he had just calmed down for 5 seconds, he might have noticed it, but no, Kylo Ren, I am the Edgelord! Cut. Oh.
It's like the diametric opposite of the Apprentice. Remember me? I was a god-modding Gary Stu.
Oh, God. Although in hindsight, I do regret the use of Gary Stu now. But anyway.
Well, to be fair, in that context, it was perfectly appropriate.
Yeah.
But moving on.
Indeed. But I think that covers most of the spoiler stuff, unless you want to bring up anything else.
Yeah, all I'll say is, once again, that light speed jump through the First Order fleet.
Yeah, and this is the last time I'll mention a reaction. People will say, well, why did they do that more often? It's a f***ing kamikaze run, that's why!
Yeah, we're not Imperial Japanese suicide fighters.
Like, even they recognize, it kind of kills people. It's not something you do unless you've got no choice in the matter.
Yeah, it wasn't the sole tactic they used. That is sort of throwing away the lives of perfectly valuable fighters, of which the Resistance has about 18 at the start of this movie.
Yeah. We could go on, but I think that pretty much covers it. It was a challenging one, and a lot of stuff happened, but yeah, I'm really glad this movie exists, even if only for the themes and, well, everything to do with Luke, frankly.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I had my complaints about it, but it wasn't anything world-ending for me. Mind you, I'm still trying to process everything I watched. That's a huge movie we're talking about, but I really can't bring myself to buy into all of the complaints. Like, I enjoyed the addition of a fourth main character. I actually really had fun with the Space Monte Carlo plotline, despite everyone else hating it. And the lightsaber fights were epic. Rey is still the best. I can't really level any super prevalent criticism toward this movie. I still really liked it despite my quibbles.
I honestly agree with you. I'm really liking what they're doing with all the characters, and I'm super hyped for the next movie, although we're probably going to get the Han Solo movie first if they can ever hold on to a director for more than 5 minutes on that movie.
God, no kidding. I think it's come down to Ron Howard, who is the director people just go to if they need someone who will stick around.
But yeah, I think if we go on for any longer, we'll match the Last Jedi in terms of length. So yeah, let's move quickly on to the next section. And Sven, you said you had a new idea for this one.
Yeah, and it's not going to be one that I do all the time, but a lot of stuff has happened in this particular arena, and well, we've been regularly covering it, so why not? I hereby dub this section
Straight Shootin'.
Because wrestling jokes.
Fair enough. Yeah, you were bringing this up because neither of us have much QuickTime reviews this week. I mean, I could vaguely recommend Xenoblade Chronicles 2, but I'm still playing through that, and that's yet another thing I want to give a full review to because it's so good.
Yeah, and as for me, I could review Pokemon Sun and Moon, but you've already done that in a quickfire review, and I've pretty well alluded to my religious love for Pokemon Sun and Moon throughout the course of this review.
Yeah, I mean, we might go into it at a future time, but yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yep, so as an alternative, I figured I would just really quickly cover just the sum of everything that's happened in wrestling lately, and you can feel free to join in with Lucha Underground and the promotions you watch.
Keep in mind that we recorded this at the start of January, so a lot of this will be out of date. It's probably best to consider this a time capsule.
Okay, so let's start with the rundown. Championships changing hands. Roman Reigns is once again champion. Dolph Ziggler, for some reason, won the US Championship just as he was walking out of the company. I'm not sure if we've covered the fact that AJ Styles is now champion and things are wildly better. Also, side note, Jinder Mahal doesn't suck anymore. I'm amazed. Asuka is still absolutely obliterating the Raw Women's Division, as one would expect. We may get into that, because there's a thing that I want to mention in that context. Braun Strowman is still obliterating everyone in the Men's Division, and now we have the WWE Mixed Match Challenge coming up, which I'm looking forward to for a multitude of reasons. A major one being the fact that they teamed Alexa Bliss with Braun Strowman, and he's 2 feet taller than she is, and that is hysterically funny.
Well, in fairness, he's 2 feet taller than almost everyone in the ring, but I mean, he's currently in a feud with the only 2 other guys who are equal to him in size, so...
Yeah, in fact, Kane is the one guy taller than he is, and that's only by 2 inches. So yeah, that's basically the rundown of everything important. Oh, also the Royal Rumble's coming up, and that's always going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. And we have a Women's Royal Rumble on top of that.
Yeah, at the end of which it's rumored that Ronda Rousey is going to show up, which I'm not a big fan of UFC, mostly because I don't watch it. But I'm excited for that, and I'm actually excited for the rumor that apparently she's been the one picked to end Asuka's streak, because I can't see anyone else doing it.
I guess we'll see whether that's true or not. In terms of the stuff that's actually happened, I'm going to breeze through opinions quickly because sod's law, I'll be talking about it in more depth on Flip the Mic. So, yeah, the whole Dolph Ziggler thing was a major surprise. And kind of glad that they're kind of shaking up the US title match a bit. And I actually find it kind of amusing. I think the reason why Jinder Mahal doesn't suck so much is that, well, it's not that he was awful before, it was just he wasn't worth the world champion status. But now that's been given to AJ Styles and he's dueling for the United States Championship, there's less expectations on him, so he can be a much more effective performer. I think that's the reason why that's working.
Yeah, and honestly, the thing with me is, I don't think Jinder sucks as someone who delivers promos. Actually, his promos are pretty brilliant whenever he's not saying stupid shit. And I don't think he's at all bad as a character, because really, for the foreign heel trope, he pulls it off with some surprising dignity. But the issue was his in-ring performance, which was vastly less than stellar. I know people just sort of wrote off his final rematch with AJ Styles at Night of Champions just because it had Jinder Mahal in it, but anyone who watched that can vouch that Jinder threw everything and the kitchen sink at AJ Styles. The expansion of his move pool was just insane. And I, for one, approve, because honestly, after seeing Baron Corbin as US champion for a while, I like Baron, but he's not a great champion.
Yeah, that's also why I'm okay with the US title shakeup. But yeah, I'm liking what they're doing with Jinder and the rest of the United States Championship. I'm also really liking what they've done with Rusev and Aiden English. They're getting insanely popular these days.
Oh god, no kidding. I have never seen a tag team duo so over. Never. and that's a huge turnaround considering nobody liked Aiden English before he joined Rusev.
Yeah, there's a lot I could talk about, but I have to get my thoughts together for Flip the Mic over MVL, and who knows, maybe when there's a big event like WrestleMania, I'll try and get you involved in that, Sven.
I would like that, but before any plans are made, I will just promise you right here and now that I will not add another 3 topics.
Fair enough. As for you, Sven, anything you want to talk about right now before we move on, or?
Just really quickly, for someone who started off the year loathing Roman Reigns for the Undertaker debacle, he's a fantastic Intercontinental Champion. I'm amazed.
Yeah.
Like, that match with Samoa Joe on the New Year's show was incredible.
Yeah. I think it's a combination of 2 things. One, the fact that he's been improving, and the fact that they've now simplified his character. He's no longer this amazing superhero figure. He's just a kind of sort of dumb babyface who just goes, oh, yeah, you want my champion? Let's fight.
Yeah, and plus they've toned down his insane invincible hero Ichigo booking, which I appreciate.
Yeah, it is showing that, yes, people can injure him, and he came very, very close to losing that title belt against Samoa Joe as well.
Yeah, like, honestly, I was amazed because it was a match that left me seriously believing that it could go either way, because they built up the feud so well, and the in-ring work was so good that you could seriously believe that either one of them could just end the other at any time.
Indeed, yes.
And also, speaking of wrestlers who had a good 2017, Samoa Joe, considering how long he was out of action, man, his return.
Yeah, he ranks for a really great antagonist. I don't know what it is about him. Actually, no, I know what it is. It's always the intensity in his voice whenever he cuts a promo. That's just... oh, man.
Yeah, and his charisma is through the ceiling. I actually quantified how I view Samoa Joe not that long ago. He's like a combination of a sumo wrestler and a mob boss.
Oh, wow. Yeah, oh crap, that is actually what it's like.
He's a super intelligent, predatory figure who has his 4 cronies in, I I believe the Miztourage worked with him after the Miz's hiatus for filming, and he also has the bar working for him now, which I like just because I'm always entertained by the crazy Irishman and the even crazier Swissman. He's this intelligent, evil leader figure, and he will also kick your ass.
Mm-hmm. I think that is definitely a great way to sum him up.
Yeah, so essentially, I'm looking forward to seeing where they go with that. The U.S. title tournament is guaranteed to be fantastic, and overall, I really have no huge complaints going into the start of the new year, which is rare considering that this is WWE we're talking about.
Yeah, here's hoping 2018 is a lot more positive for them.
Yeah, that brings an end to the first instance of this random news section that I've created. Probably look forward to it more in the future, because it sort of just gives us time to talk about stuff really quickly without the minute time limit.
Indeed, yes, and honestly, like I said, we didn't have much for quick time reviews, and maybe in the future we can use this to not just talk about wrestling, but also small other discussions, but frankly, any discussions I have right now would be basically, well, complaining about certain YouTubers who really aren't worth mentioning, and yeah, let's just keep it on a positive note as we close this show and start a whole new year.
Yeah, as Johnny Cash said in the song Streets of Laredo, don't mention their names and their names will pass on.
Indeed, yes. That's a really good way of putting it. So with that, let's just close this show on a high. Until next time, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader. May the Force be with you and the Kylos be hilarious.
That was Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. If you feel that you've been the subject of slander or that your copyright has been misused, please PM me and I'll try and get round to fixing it as soon as possible. We also welcome any comments, be it feedback or your own viewpoints on any of the things we've discussed. Until next month, have fun, kids!